Hello and welcome to Hext Encountered. I'm Joe. In this video, we'll be taking a first look at the game Atlantic Sentinels, North Atlantic Convoy Escort, 1942 to 43, a solitaire naval game by Gregory M. Smith, who of course has created a whole lot of solitaire narrative type games. This one is published by Compass Games and basically covers the war in the Atlantic between the convoys and the U-boats from the convoy side, the convoy escort side, whereas the first game that Gregory Smith designed was the Hunters, which actually was the flip side, which was controlling a U-boat. So this one takes the other angle, and you will be managing convoy escorts as part of either the Royal Navy or the Royal Canadian Navy. And so let's take a look at what's on the back of the box. This was just released from Compass. I did pre-order it. I'm a big fan of Gregory Smith's games and wasn't about to pass this one up. So this is a solitaire tactical level game, placing you as the senior officer of the escort, shepherding a convoy in the North Atlantic from the attacks of U-boats. You're in command of a convoy escort group composed typically of 4 to 10 escort vehicles guarding or escort vessels, wow, not vehicles, escort vessels guarding a convoy on its way across the Atlantic. So your mission is to protect as much Allied shipping as possible while simultaneously destroying as many U-boats as possible. So I won't read the rest of this. It is a relatively low complexity game with a score of 4 out of 10. The time scale is semi-abstract, 2 missions per month. Map is abstract. Our unit scale are individual escorts, U-boats, and merchant ships. It is a solitaire game for 1 player with an options for 2. Suitability for solitaire, well, it's designed for it, so it's 10 out of 10. Average playtime, 10 to 15 minutes for a single mission, 6 to 8 hours for a full career. Recommended age, 14 and up. So it's right here is a key paragraph for me, is that of particular note is the game is designed to integrate with the Hunters if players wish to combine the game. So if you are a subscriber to the channel, you are no doubt aware that I did a series of videos on the Hunters recently, doing a career basically of a German U-boat commander, and that recently ended after 8 missions with the U-39 being sunk. So this is the flip side, as I mentioned already. And with this, you know that that's probably where the 2-player action comes in. You can have somebody play as the U-boat and somebody play as the escorts. So let's take a look and see what's inside the box. One thing I'd like to mention before we actually get into the contents of the box is that, as I mentioned, I did pre-order this game. And when I got it, the box had a note in it right here that says, please check thoroughly in the mailing box for 2 black dice that were not in the game box. I'm sure they'll get that corrected, but in the meantime, I did dig through and found our 2 black dice. As you can see here in this bag, there are also 4 white dice. Then you have your sequence of play cards. So this, I think, was a recent addition to kind of the mechanisms for Gregory Smith's games. I'm trying to remember. It may have been in the Western Front Ace game. I might be wrong about that, but I think I've seen this before in one of the other games. So if we just take a quick look here at the cards themselves, there's 1 card, I believe, for like basically each phase of the game. So you have prepare to play, escort mission start, conduct mission, encounters, combat prep, detection, attack U-boats, U-boats versus convoy, encounter sequence, air encounter, because you do have the possibility of encountering the Focke-Wulf 200, and then end mission. So 10 cards for 10 steps. So these are kind of a handy-dandy player aid for going through the steps of the game itself. Of course, we do have a rule book, and the rule book weighs in at 27 pages, and you do have on the back, you have a chart, B8 for U-boat damage listings. Did I say that correctly? Probably not. So here is our rule book. So as you can see, it's laid out in the typical manner. Having just played the Hunters and seeing that rulebook, this is fairly similar in nature. I've also played a bunch of different Gregory Smith games, so they're all laid out pretty much the same. So you do have, basically the layout of the game equipment and the game setup, how you set things up. Then you have how to win the game. And Section 5. Section 6 is your sequence of play. So we kind of just showed the cards, right? So you would set up and then you would determine your convoy assignment, conduct your escort, resolve any encounters, refit your escort group, and then it mentions the sequence of play cards. And it does say their use is optional but should be helpful and is strongly encouraged. Then you have convoy assignment, and then how the combat procedures work. Let's see what else. This is still combat procedures. Combat is probably the most, maybe rule intense part of the game, as you would expect. It's, convoy escort was probably a lot of downtime followed by, some period of sheer terror and action, and then more downtime. So you have U-boat damage, escort damage, your crew advancement, promotions. So again, it follows kind of a similar theme to some of the other games where you're basically you're role playing essentially as the senior officer of an escort. So you do have promotions, and your crews and so forth can move up in experience and win medals and so on. Then you have a nice example of play. I always love games or rule books that include those. There are random events. You have the multiplayer rules here for playing a two-player game with both playing on the Allied side, and then a two-player game combined with the Hunters. So this is an interesting one that I would be interested in checking out myself. Our historical scenarios, convoy on 113, or ON 113, sorry. PQ 17 is in my head. Then you have ONS 154. Then the optional rules with limited depth charges, and green crews, variable U-boat quality, variable aircraft quality, etc. Designer notes, always nice to see. Bibliography, ship notes on the various ships, and then our rules index, which is also very handy to have, and then kind of your counters and your U-boat detection sequence here in the bottom, and then again on the back you have chart B8. So speaking of charts, there's a nice assortment of player aids in here. These are some of the boards, I'm sure. So here's chart A4, and on the other side we have C1, C3, C2, and C4. Sorry, I should probably lower that a little bit so you can actually see it. So here's chart A4, which is the refit upgrade air support phase. On the other side, we have chart C1, U-boat targeting. So I believe this is what the U-boats are targeting. And then you have the weather, always important, flak, aircraft encounters. And on chart B, we have B1, the U-boat torpedo to hit chart. Really similar to the Hunters, to be honest, which is what you would expect. You do have some DRMs here, some diral modifiers for firing the torpedo on the surface. The electric torpedo, the G7E, and medium and long range will add, which makes it harder to hit, as you can tell from up here. They will add a +1 for medium and a +2 for long. U-boat is green, that's a positive DRM. And second salvo torpedo for night surface attack. This is identical to the Hunters. Attack damage chart, well, this part's not. There's a little bit more involved in the Hunters with the modifiers, but this I'm pretty sure is pretty much identical. You have the Fido homing torpedo. Attack damage chart B2. So from again, this is just like the Hunters, where if you roll a 4 or higher, it's 1 damage. You roll a 1, that's 4 damage. For when your torpedoes hit the target. Damage to sink, again, very similar to the Hunters. If it's a 4 damage ship, a large ship requiring multiple damage, you can see that's a 10,000 or more ton Ship will be sunk with 4 damage, and then 5,001 to 9999 would be 3, and so forth. The dud chart, again, some torpedoes can be duds. U-boat damage, this is damage to the U-boat itself. Escort, yeah, this is all very, very similar to the Hunters. So if you've played the Hunters, all of these charts are going to really look similar, except for this depth charges. This is escort air attack chart. In the Hunters, these two charts, I think, are separate, if I remember correctly. On the back, we have our random events, some optional variable U-boat quality, and optional evasive maneuvers. Then we have the table for convoy ON113, what ships were in there. On the back, we have convoy ONS154. And here we have a table of small freighters, again, very similar to the Hunters, where you roll. I remember the Baron Pentland. I sank this in the Hunters in my most recent game. So some of these names will be familiar to you, as they are to me, if you've played the Hunters. You have large freighters on the other side. And then we have our convoy assignment, which is chart A1. So this is going to be more new and specific to this game. Convoy assignment and where you're starting at Londonderry or starting at St. John. So basically, are you starting in Britain and going west to North America, or are you starting in North America and heading east to Europe? Counter charts, Wolfpack size chart, and then tankers, which goes along. It's just the target roster goes along with that. Then we have our U-boat combat mat, which again, this is similar to the Hunters, where it's laid out differently, but you do have range, damage charts, damage to sink, escort detection, all this stuff in the modifiers, and then tracks for the various targets and types of targets. There's nothing on the back of that, as I would expect. The current U-boat target, so you have two types, the type 7 and the type 9. And basically tracking the damage on those two types. And then you have flooding and hull damage, which can obviously result in sinking. Flooding will force you to surface from the U-boat side. And then we have our tactical display, which folds out. And here's our tactical display, which is what you'll use to play as far as maneuvering. And the game does include Wolfpack attacks, so you can be facing more than one submarine at a time. Now in here we have our counter sheet, single sheet, double-sided as you'd expect. It comes in nice plastic to protect it. Doesn't feel like it's going to require much effort to punch out. Just looking at it, it's pretty much all markers as you would expect. Again, very similar to the Hunters in theme, and these look just like the Hunters torpedo counters, actually. The log sheet, which is actually, they give you a decent amount of log sheets here, so that's nice before you actually, and they're double-sided apparently. So you have plenty of log sheets to play with before you need to worry about putting it together. And then you have an operations map. So this is your operations map, which sort of resembles what they had in the Hunters, with the boxes indicating progress, either from Londonderry to St. John's or vice versa, right? So you have Newfoundland to Londonderry in Ireland, Northern Ireland, or vice versa. And then over here we have your escort group display mat. So what ships are in here, and these would be your ships, and you can have destroyers, frigates, cutters, or corvettes. And this would be your role here as the senior officer of the escort, and your rank. You have marker spots for random events, and the base you're currently using. So that, as they say, is that is everything that is in this game. So if you are like me, you're probably looking forward to checking this out. I certainly am. This is likely to be a game that I will be playing in the very, very near future. Only because I really enjoy it, like I said, or enjoy this style of game, rather. So that will do it for this one. I do appreciate you watching. As always, please consider liking, sharing, and or subscribing. If you are already a subscriber, I thank you for your support. But that will do it for this one. As always, my name's Joe. This is the Hexton Counter Channel. And until next time, happy gaming.